Welcome to the Rich Report, a podcast with news and information on HPC and cloud computing. Today, my guest is from Riverbed. We have Kosten Metreweli. He's the VP of Marketing for the Zeus business unit. So welcome to the show, Kosten.
Thanks very much. Great to be here.
So, Kosten, Zeus was recently acquired by Riverbed. So why don't we just go into the slides and learn some more?
Okay, that sounds great. So, yes, thanks very much for having us to speak. What I want to do is give you a little bit of background into who Zeus actually are, and then, as you say, talk a bit about this acquisition that happened very recently. Riverbed bought Zeus, and what that actually means. So, if I dive into Zeus technology for a couple of seconds on slide 2. Zeus is really the pioneer in the market of virtual application delivery controllers. So you'll know an application delivery controller as a load balancer, perhaps with a lot of extended functionality on top that helps make applications fast, secure, and available. Those application delivery controllers are typically delivered as a hardware appliance that you slot into your data center. What the innovation that Zeus has really brought to the market has been delivering this as a software product that can sit on generalized hardware. So the ability to run on a physical box if you want to, within any type of within any flavor of hypervisor, or within any cloud. And obviously, the way that organizations are beginning to deploy applications, or at least looking to deploy applications in the future, generally has some degree of virtualization involved, and has some degree of cloud involved. So the ability to deploy across all of those environments becomes extremely important. So Zeus as a company had about 1,500 customers globally. Majority of customers in North America and in Europe, but also a good number of customers over in Asia Pacific. One of the things that Zeus did very well was work with cloud providers and allow cloud providers to offer this application delivery controller as a key building block within their infrastructure as a service offering. So companies like Amazon, like Rackspace, like Joint, and so on, are able to offer a virtual application delivery controller within their infrastructure as a service portal that customers can switch on and off on demand, pay for by the hour or the month, however they bill. Zeus sells to most industries. It's a pretty horizontal product, but we've done especially well in telecoms, media, e-commerce. As a company, we're about 91 employees and based out of Cambridge in the UK. Lots of key brands actually use the product, and so there are often questions. Well, how many people are actually deploying large scale applications in virtual cloud environments? Well, we've seen a lot of customers actually doing this, and you can see some of them on the bottom of the slide there. So moving on to slide 3, the big news was that on the 19th of July, Riverbed bought Zeus, and at the same time, Riverbed bought a company called Aptimize as well, based out of New Zealand. Riverbed is known as being the IT performance company for networks, for applications, and for storage. And this really helped Riverbed to round out its portfolio, and so it's Riverbed is now able to offer pretty much complete portfolio of products that help you to optimize the performance of an application. So when we talk about optimizing the performance of an application, what are the pieces that Riverbed really deals with? Well, if we could look at slide 4, what is it that makes a web application fast? Well, first of all, it's about the connection. So the wide area connection that exists between perhaps the client and the application. So it might be a branch office trying to access an application in the main data center. Or it could be between data centers themselves. So you might have a distributed application that needs to synchronize databases across different geographies, perhaps a data center in the US and a data center over in Asia Pacific somewhere. Secondly, it's about the availability and capacity of the server farm itself. So, the web farm, the web servers, the application servers that actually run the application. So this is all about making you have enough compute capacity, and that the applications are actually able to keep up with the rate of requests that are coming in. And lastly, it's about page composition. So if we're talking about a web application, how the page is composed is extremely important. A lot of web applications these days consist of hundreds of different pieces, from blocks of text from text through to images, through to style sheets and JavaScript. And every round trip that needs to be made to fetch one of those things slows the page down. In addition, how you actually structure the page itself makes a difference to performance. So by optimizing how a page is actually constructed and the number of files you use, then you can speed up an application. So this is really what Riverbed was thinking when it acquired Zeus and acquired Aptimize. So Riverbed's core products have traditionally been around WAN optimization, and so that really has dealt with the connection problem there. Zeus's products have dealt with load balancing and application delivery controllers. So that deals with the server problem, the availability and capacity of the server farm. And Aptimize deals with how those HTML pages themselves are constructed and really optimizes that. So you add all those pieces together and you have an extremely fast web app. So moving on to slide 5, let's just take a little bit more of a deep dive into what we mean by an application delivery controller. So really, what the application delivery controller is doing is providing deep visibility and control of application traffic. So it's really connecting the users over here on the left-hand side to the application itself over here on the right-hand side, which may consist of a number of different types of server. So first of all, what we're doing is optimizing and accelerating the application. What we're doing there is offloading a lot of compute-intensive tasks from back-end servers that just aren't very good at doing that sort of thing, like compression and encryption. If you look at the BBC News website, that's one of the most highly trafficked websites globally. They put Zeus in front of the BBC News website to make sure that the website can always meet demand. So whatever the big story happens to be, as you know, media applications like that can get very bursty traffic. So by putting Zeus in place there, they're able to not only reduce the effort, reduce the load on back-end servers, and you can reduce the back-end server infrastructure by up to about 70%. We've seen, but also you can make sure you can absorb some of those big peaks in demand efficiently. Secondly, we're able to differentiate and prioritize traffic. So because what the Zeus Traffic Manager is able to do is actually inspect the traffic as it's going past from a layer 7 perspective, it can dig in and see what the web page, for example, is that's being served. It's able to prioritize traffic. So to give you a good example, I know he's not necessarily flavor of the month for everyone in the U.S., but Obama, when he ran his presidential campaign, obviously this is one of the most successful fundraising campaigns that's ever been run in U.S. history. And the way that he did that was not by getting big donations, but by getting lots and lots of small donations on his website. And that sat behind a Zeus Traffic Manager. Now, the important thing there was obviously they'd have a donation section, but also there'd be news, blogs, etc. going on at the same time. And being a political website, when something controversial was said on the blog, it would get a lot of traffic. There'd be a big peak in demand. But what they wanted to make absolutely certain was that when there was that peak in demand, it didn't affect how donations were taken. So by prioritizing traffic to the donation section of the site, they're able to make sure that donations never suffered at the popularity of the blog. And finally, the other thing that we're doing is inspecting and securing traffic, so making sure that we block common attacks on applications. So, for example, denial of service attacks or SQL injection attacks. So just to go one level deeper on slide 6, what this is really about is making sure that your application is faster, more reliable, more secure, and easier to manage critically across physical, virtual, and cloud environments. And it's really for any type of application that runs over IP, anything from a website to an ERP system to Microsoft Exchange to voice over IP, for example. Some of the things that we're doing within the product to make the application faster is offloading compute-intensive tasks, encryption, XML transformation, that sort of thing. Compressing content. If you look at a company like Mozilla, who offer the Firefox browser, by distributing their application across multiple data centers and putting Zeus in front of it, they are able to reduce the number of hits on the back-end infrastructure by 90% because they get such a good cache hit rate. Auto scaling is a very important capability when you're using cloud infrastructure. What this does is allows you to make use of the elasticity of cloud. So when you get a big peak in demand, rather than having to have over-provisioned so that you can meet that peak in demand with your back-end servers, instead what Zeus does is sits there, monitors the traffic going past, and says, look, I can see that the latency for these responses is beginning to increase. Therefore, I'm simply going to provision some more back-end servers, add them to my load balancing pool, and that'll take care of that. That'll bring the response time back down again. And then when the demand goes away, it can take down those servers. One of our customers, Alert Boot in Las Vegas, over the holiday period last year, they reckon they are able to save about 60% of their costs over the previous year because they didn't have to over-provision and they could use this auto-scaling capability. We're also making the application more reliable, so spreading the traffic across multiple servers and making sure that the servers we spread it across are actually available in the first place. So obviously make sure that if one server goes down, that the application's not affected. But we can also make sure that applications get traffic at a rate they can handle. So make sure that applications that can only handle a certain number of transactions per second are fed at the proper rate. We make applications more secure. So, for example, as I said, provide denial of service protection. We actually have an application firewall built into the product that provides that stops a lot of common attacks, and this helps retail organizations, for example, achieve PCI DSS compliance. So if they have to deal with credit card data, and finally, make it easier to manage. So one of the critical things about Zeus is that we're talking about running applications across not just one data center, but perhaps multiple data centers. That could be a physical data center, it could be a virtual data center, or indeed could be a cloud data center, or multiple cloud data centers. And what you need to be able to do when you've got your application distributed across multiple places is manage it from one pane of glass, and that's what we provide. So moving on to slide 7, how does virtual ADC play in the cloud? Well, really, I think the exciting thing here is that by putting a virtual ADC in front of your application, where your application needs to be able to control traffic, which for most web applications today is the case. Most big web applications is the case. For example, you need to know that you're connecting to an iPhone or an iPad or a PC screen. You need to be able to do it across any size of connection, from a very anemic mobile data pipe through to a fixed connection. And you need to be able to do it across multiple. You need to be able to deliver across multiple geographies. So by having the application delivery controller as a physical piece of hardware, what happens is it's difficult to move that application around. By virtualizing that piece of the infrastructure, what you're able to do is really run that workload in the best execution environment possible. So if you want to run it in the cloud, you can absolutely do that. You can run it in pretty much any cloud infrastructure that you want to. And indeed, if you want to distribute the application, say I've got my application in my New York data center, but I want to start running it in Singapore for my Asia Pacific customers as well, it's more or less a case of dragging and dropping it into a new cloud infrastructure, give or take a bit of complexity. If I want to scale the application, I talked about this auto scaling capability, then it's very easy to do that. I can simply switch on and off servers on demand and achieve a big saving as a result. And if I want to migrate an application either across my data center or across the world, from one technology, perhaps a physical server, to another technology, perhaps a VMware or Xen-based virtual environment, then I can do that. I have total flexibility. So a couple of important things about what this allows you to do. If you look at slide 8, one of the things this allows you to do is meet demand very efficiently. So the little blue square on the slide is supposed to represent kind of the virtual environment. If you run your application delivery controllers outside the virtual environment, and you're buying classic hardware-based products, typically hardware-based ADCs you tend to buy in pairs, and when you run out of capacity, you throw them away and you buy another pair, which is an expensive way of doing things. What you do with a virtual ADC is instead you simply change the hardware that sits underneath the software application itself. So you make scaling up a much more efficient exercise. In addition, with Zeus, what you're able to do is you don't have to scale up. You can use a model that's very, very popular in cloud, scale out. So you have your two application delivery controllers sitting there as a high availability pair, but you run out of capacity. Instead of having to scale up, what you can do is simply cluster another one in there, and then cluster another one in there, and keep on going. And indeed, add and remove from that cluster based on demand. So it means that you can be extremely efficient about how you provide the application delivery controller itself. And of course, the application itself, sitting on the web server application servers within your server farm, can also be scaled up and down on demand. Secondly, if you look at slide 9, the ability to migrate and distribute the application instantaneously, your application instantaneously, is pretty important. So I use the example of Mozilla, who have a physical data center over in California. What they want to do is make sure that when someone started up their Firefox browser and it went to check for updates, that they minimize the latency. Previously, what would happen is, if you're in Europe or Asia Pac, your browser would go and hit the California data center. What they did was spin up some cloud infrastructure in Europe and in Asia Pacific, and because they're running Zeus they're running Zeus application delivery controllers in front of their application, they're pretty much able to kind of drag and drop it over into those two data centers and have them up and running within the space of a week. So gave them enormous flexibility in a way that they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And of course, the other important thing about the Zeus product set is that not only are we load balancing traffic within those data centers, but also making sure through our global load balancing capability that the traffic gets to the right place. So if we see a user who's fired up their Firefox browser in London, we'll make sure they get sent to the European data center, unless the European data center happens to be down, in which case we'll send them to the next available. So it makes sure that your applications are fast and always available. So why the Riverbed ADC? What's different about it? Well, it's an extremely high-performance software-based ADC. As I said, will run on physical hardware. So for example, we have customers who deploy this on a Cisco UCS blade. Cisco UCS being Cisco's data center in a box solution, means you can put it onto a blade, and you pretty much have your you pretty much have a hardware appliance, but as a Cisco UCS blade, which means that you can keep your data center in a box paradigm. Also deploy it in any virtual environment and still achieve line speed performance, and of course deploy it in any cloud environment as well. We're available on more virtualization platforms than any other. We're not the only virtual ADC, but other virtual ADCs that are out there offer a fraction of the performance, but also a fraction of the deployment targets. So you might just be able to deploy on VMware. With this ADC, what you're able to do is deploy on any hypervisor that you happen to have. In addition, deploy in any cloud. So you'll see that the Zeus ADC is still the only application delivery controller available in the Amazon cloud, as a good example. We support scale up as well as scale out models. I talked about that. So, if you want to scale up, add more capacity to a single ADC, you can do that. And if you want to scale out by clustering, then you can do that too. So it gives you a lot more architectural flexibility. Powerful management and visibility tools, so manage across not just your own data center, but multiple data centers, multiple clouds from a single pane of glass. Application integration, we provide a lot of customization capabilities within the product, so you can create your own business policies as to how traffic is going to be managed. So, for example, prioritize your best users of your application over casual browsers to make sure that your best users' transactions always go through. And this product's been around since 2006, so it's mature enough to run critical applications in the data center. And many big brands rely on this product to deliver extremely high capacity applications out there, either from their physical data center or out in the cloud even. So that's my overview of Riverbed and the Zeus product set within Riverbed. Have you got any questions?
Yes, I have a couple questions, Kosten. Back on slide 4, you were showing how the Zeus products fit in with Riverbed. But I'm curious, what were people doing? How did they manage all this complexity before Zeus? Were they writing a lot of scripts, or what did that look like?
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously load balancing is a capability that's been around for a long time and is pretty much a fundamental component of any large scale web application. So really, the capability had been around, but the difference what was different about Zeus was that we were actually delivering this as a software capability and not as a hardware appliance. And the advantage that gives is that it allows customers to deploy however they want to. So a physical appliance may be the right way to do it for them, and so they can just simply put the Zeus software onto a physical appliance. They may want to run it in a virtual environment. They may want to run it in a cloud, and it just gives them extreme flexibility to do that in whatever way is appropriate for them, either today or at some point in the future.
And I'm curious, Kosten, if you go back to the beginning, as you guys built up Zeus functionality, did you have a roadmap to become something more like a Riverbed kind of company?
Well, we've always sort of focused on the application delivery controller problem, interestingly, just a few weeks before the Riverbed acquisition, Zeus itself actually acquired another company called Art of Defense, based out of Germany, which provided the web application firewall capability that I mentioned, that is actually integral to the Zeus product. So we had OEM that capability before. So we were in the process of building out that functionality, either organically or through acquisition. We hadn't got quite as far as sort of thinking about providing WAN optimization controller capabilities as well. But I think the marriage of Riverbed and Zeus is extremely good. So obviously, Riverbed owned the WAN optimization.
So, Kosten, you've been part of Riverbed for a while now with the Zeus division. What kind of customers are you talking to, and what do they think of the complete Riverbed offering?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We're talking to a variety of customers, both traditional Riverbed customers, traditional Zeus customers, and one of the things I think that's really important is that from the conversations that I've had is that that has surprised me in some ways is that in a sense, what customers are kind of most excited about is the fact that they now have a single place to go to get all of these application and network optimization capabilities, be it the WAN optimization controller, the ADC, the web content optimization, or indeed Riverbed's Cascade product that lets you monitor performance end to end and really understand where the bottlenecks are. So in other words, with this portfolio, you're able to identify the bottlenecks that may be slowing your application down. And as you know, those can be really hard to find. But then you can fix them with the appropriate product sets, with the appropriate products. And Riverbed really have been able to build a best of breed product set here. They've got they've got the industry-leading WAN optimization controller, they've got the industry-leading virtual ADC, and they've got this pretty new emerging capability, the web content optimization as well from Aptimize. So it's a pretty compelling story.
So kind of a wrap-up question here, Kosten. As you talk to these customers, do they have like a holy grail kind of set of capabilities where they want this kind of software to go? Or what are they telling you?
I mean, certainly from I kind of approach this from a traditional Zeus perspective. Zeus is really kind of focused on applications running in a data center, kind of web-facing applications, or perhaps big business applications like SAP or Microsoft Exchange, for example. What we were seeing as a business was organizations really starting to think about how they leverage cloud infrastructure in order to meet the sort of performance demands that they have, both from the perspective of meeting performance demands, but also from the perspective of making sure that their development process and their speed of pushing new functionality into production was as fast as possible. And so, that's certainly been this sort of, I guess the best way to characterize it is this sort of emergence of the DevOps role, whereby application developers are sort of raising their prominence. One of the things that the Zeus product has been able to do is help those people take control of how traffic is managed and really integrate it into the application itself. And really, what we'd seen was a lot of customers wanting to increase that pace, so they could move to, for example, if they're using an agile development process, move to releasing their application into production on a daily basis. And as you'll know, if you want to do that, then one of the best ways to do it is to virtualize everything that you can, because it makes it easy to roll back, roll forward, etc. But also make sure that they could use cloud infrastructure to scale, but also to experiment as well. And so what they were looking for was increasingly looking for products that would that could run in multiple cloud environments, which might be something like using something like some public cloud capability like Amazon.com for experimentation, and they might be using something like SunGuard Cloud for their production capability. But obviously, what they need are these fundamental these fundamental application building blocks that will run in any of those environments. So we are kind of some of the things that we're doing as Zeus and that we continue to do within Riverbed is target more of those cloud environments, target more of these virtualization capabilities, like, for example, auto-scaling within VMware environments and other virtual platforms, so that customers can achieve those things.
Well, thank you for that, Kosten, and it sounds like Riverbed and Zeus are ones to watch here in the cloud space. So good luck with that, and I want to thank you once again for coming on the show today.
Well, thank you very much. It's been great to speak to you.
Okay, folks, that's it for the Rich Report. Stay tuned for more news and information on high-performance computing.